All right. Wadih Wednesday, everybody. Welcome. It is time to talk about the hidden costs of assimilation. When we leave parts of ourselves behind to fit in, something inside us starts to ache. Cultural disconnection, losing language, faith, family rituals that once grounded us, emotional alienation, feeling like an outsider in both worlds, identity confusion, too Arab there, too Western here, internalized shame, really hiding parts of yourself to belong, yet never feeling good enough for either. Generational tension, parents and children experiencing assimilation in very different ways. You're not alone. If you have felt these hidden costs, healing begins when we give ourselves permission to belong to both worlds. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to talk about the cost of assimilation and staying authentic in a new world. And we're going to talk about what that means. So, for those that are joining, welcome, welcome. Sabah al khair. For those that are somewhere out in the morning, what's the other one? Afternoon. Sabah al ful.
مساء الخير.
Masal al khair. All right. I love that. So, wherever you are in the world, please let us know where you're from. We love connecting with our community for International Arab, where we come to talk about emotional health and wellness within our cultural context. Now, people from the Middle East, North African communities, or anyone that comes from a collective culture, we are here to come together. We are here to heal. The essence of everything that we do here is to ensure unity, compassion, love, and honoring our traditions while still being true to ourselves. So as people are hopping on, please in the comments, if you feel called to let us know where you are coming in from. I guess we always have Egypt in the house because we've got Mira, my amazing assistant who runs all the back end. Mira, introduce yourself to the people that are new to the platform and maybe give them some updates and kind of some house keeping things. Oh, wait, hold on. We've got Nadine from Colorado. I was just out in Colorado. Absolutely love that state. Wash Pants from Sacramento, California. Good morning. Good morning, California peeps. We've got some folks from UAE. Yes. Hamdani, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Welcome, UAE. Let's see. Is there a mic check? Is my mic working?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, طيب. كل شيء منيح ميرا؟ كل شيء منيح؟
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, B. All right. Thank you, B.
So let me tell them a bit about the Yalla News.
Yes, please.
Okay, so as you just introduced me, my name is Mira. I'm from Egypt, and I helped Tiffany during this time build this community. I help with editing. I usually help try to answer your DMs as fast as I can. I'm here to support this community in every way I can, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And we do every Wadah Wednesday, we have some Yalla News, which is basically some things we just let you guys know about. So let me update you about a few things. The first thing is our website is under progress. So everyone that's looking for one-on-one sessions or the workshops or anything, please feel free to DM us and I'll guide you from there. But it will be done soon, very, very soon, which is very exciting. The second thing, if you have any questions during the live, please feel free to just comment the question. Just leave it in the comments, and I'll make sure to let Tiffany know about them. But please be patient because we have Tiffany always has an amazing amount of content and things she wants to share with us. So, but we get to your comments, so please be patient.
Can I slow you down? Can we please make the comments relevant to the topic? So today we're going to talk about the cost of assimilation. And what does it mean to stay authentic in a new world? And we'll talk about what that means. But sometimes it's very distracting when people ask us questions that are not on topic. So we will ask our community to please be mindful before you comment. I know sometimes you can feel seen in this here, and I love that. I know everyone that's called to this content wants to heal and grow and be curious around how to live a more fulfilled life. We love that. And we also want to ensure that those that have come on the live to really understand what assimilation has meant for them and to gain some awareness and understanding. We really want to ensure that people get what they need. So please be mindful before you comment. It is extremely important that you start to call upon your self awareness around what you're projecting out. And sometimes the comments can become quite interesting for us. We will block anyone that is going to instill any kind of, what do the Gen Z say? They go, we do the vibe check. The vibe check, if the vibe ain't working, you're going to get blocked and deleted. So let's be really mindful to ensure that we have a healthy, positive, loving lives so that we can all learn about ourselves. And I think I'll say this, Mira.
As you always say, what doesn't apply,
That's right. Say it again.
what doesn't apply, let it fly.
That's right. What doesn't apply, let it fly. We come from a culture where there may be a lot of self righteousness. And with that, people think that their experience is the only experience, and then they generalize to everybody's experience. Please don't do that. If whatever I say doesn't apply to you, acknowledge that, keep it within yourself, and move along. Your experience is a drop in an ocean of our experiences as Arab. And yes, D, I am Bint Arabiya, Palestinian American, uh, and very proud of our Arab heritage. And so, yes, I am Arab. All right. Okay. All right, Mina, is that it for Yalla News?
Yeah, the only thing is, I would just like to remind everyone that we're streaming on different platforms. So that's why you may see Tiffany looking in different cameras. So
Oh, yeah.
just be mindful of that. But we see all of you. I'm here to, I got your back. You can comment anything and I'll let Tiffany know your question.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mira. All right, it's 8:03. We need to get started because I have so much
Yes.
to go on. All right, let's make it work. Okay. So, welcome everybody. All right, let's talk about the cost of assimilation. So, many of us have learned to adapt to maybe sound different, even think different uh, in order to belong. So think about if you've moved outside of your home country, start to think about what's one way I may have changed to fit in, or what's one part of myself I never wanted to lose, but because of where I'm living, I'm losing it. And so, if anybody, just as we start to talk about assimilation, call your awareness to yourself and start to say, how have I changed? What has happened to me as a result of trying to assimilate? Now, I work with many Arab, and it's almost like multiple changes, multiple identities, multiple countries. So if this is you, it's very normal to feel like there's a lot of perhaps confusion, code switching, which I'll talk about a little later. But start to ask yourself, what's one thing I've changed to fit in? Assimilation, um, because this belonging comes at a cost. And we've done a series on loss and grief. And this is what is moving us into this assimilation, because I don't think we talk enough in our culture about the cost of who we are isn't belonging at all. And that's painful. And that could feel disorienting. And so today we'll explore how assimilation shapes our identity, how we can reclaim what feels true to us. And assimilation, it's interesting because as I was going through this content, I was like, it promises belonging, right? But for many Middle Eastern individuals living outside of our home country, or even within our own communities, it can come at a cost of identity, connection, self trust. So it's not just living in another country. Sometimes, if you being your authentic self, that can be challenging even within your own community. That's the layer that I think Western therapists, now I know I'm in the West, do not understand about the multi layers that we as a community have to deal with. And so here this conversation is going to explore the emotional impact, the psychological toll of trying to fit in, and how to reclaim our authenticity without losing connection to either world. And that's what this content is always about. It's about bridging this gap. It's not one or the other. So, did anyone feel comfortable putting in the comments what's one way you've changed to fit in? Did anybody share anything, Mira? I know I can share. So, being a Palestinian American living in San Francisco, growing up in San Francisco, we were very much a immigrant, like parents of like children. We were raised Palestini, right? And so we were maybe darker than I grew up in a very Irish Catholic neighborhood. So, of course, we had the dark hair, the dark eyes, and we were terrified to let anyone know we were Arab. Because back then in the 70s, there was so much discrimination and racism that for us to fit in, my name is Tiffany. My mother ensured she gave us the most Americani names she could think of in order for us to assimilate. So we didn't go through what she went through. And I think a lot of our parents don't talk about what they went through. So nobody wants to share what they may have gone through to fit in. So the question is, what's one way you've changed to fit in your country? That's the question. Okay, well, if no one has anything, let's just keep going. So let's ask ourselves first, what does assimilation really mean? Assimilation is adapting to fit in a dominant culture. So ask yourself, what is the dominant culture that you belong to? And then ask yourself, for Middle Eastern communities, many times it starts very early. Maybe you change your accent, or you try to change your accent. You may change the pronunciation of your name. I know here in the United States, it's very challenging. Avoiding being too cultural, whatever that means. And it can feel like safety. It could feel like, oh, I'm assimilating, we're trying to belong. But it often leads to emotional distance from both cultures, that it may create a false sense of safety, but really it may not. And the silent trade-off that you have to do between being silent, the silent trade-off between acceptance and authenticity. So let's see, did we have people comment? Let's see, we have Nadine saying, you try to fit in by the way you dress. Yep, there it is. Hazel talked about the way I communicate. That's right. I know in corporate settings, especially being Palestinian, now you could say Palestinian. unfortunately, it took everything for people to go, oh, I don't need to be progressive except for Palestine. But here in the United States, if you even remotely said Palestinian, you were shunned. And a lot of times it was self protective. And it was awful back then, especially in a corporate setting. We had to hide our identity, this silence, and it ate us alive for many of us. Now we don't care. Now we can say it. And but again, that acceptance, sometimes job promotions, there are lots of implications to that. So, what does fitting in look like for you growing up? What did it look like? How did you notice assimilation showing up in your daily life? So, I gave an example of the workplace. We didn't mention our ethnicity ever. Uh, Assimilating in our friendships. We tried to go with the flow of our American friends, listening to their microaggressions, hearing what they would say about Arabs, and we would stay silent. We wouldn't say anything. We were almost embarrassed that, and I'll talk about it, that internalized shame. Dating, oh man, there was no dating, but we assimilated by staying within our own cultural group, because if you went outside of that, what happened? So if anyone has anything to share of how did you assimilate growing up? What did it look like? How did it show up for you? Okay, so let's talk about, as people are maybe thinking about it, the hidden costs, which I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the live. The hidden costs of assimilating, the biggest one I see is cultural disconnection. You lose your language, your faith, your family, rituals, traditions, and community ties. Because many times people will say to me, Tiffany, I'm so isolated in my home, in let's say they're in Germany, or they're in Australia, or they're in the United States, and they say, I feel this complete disconnection, and that feels ungrounding. Emotional alienation. So those that have been here in the United States, and then they go back to, let's say, Urdun, or they go back to Lebanon. Now what happens is they're an outsider in both worlds, right? So they go back, oh, look, you're so American, or oh, you're so Western. And they're saying, well, I've been there. I've been in that country for 10 years. Yes, I'm going to have some assimilation, yet there's shaming and shunning and putting down. And that takes an emotional toll. Identity confusion. I hear this a lot. I know I grew up with a lot of identity confusion, where am I too Arab there or too Western here? And you sort of mold yourself and you're trying to figure it out. But we come from a culture that constantly moves the goalpost. So you never really know what's acceptable, what's not, who you are, where you go. It's horribly disorienting, which leads to, and I know I had this throughout most of my teens. I hated being Arab. I loved being Palestinian. I was proud to be Palestinian, but I hated being Arabi because of everything that came, not only as born in the United States, but all the cultural expectations, everything. It was just like I was being pulled in so many, and I was like, ugh, I don't like it all. But what it did was it gave internalized shame, that I was feeling pressure to hide parts of myself مع الأمريكان, feeling pressure to hide parts of myself مع العرب, and I wasn't enough in either. And that, take a look at that for yourself, the internalized shame, which then leads to why I started this platform, was the generational tension of how parents and children experience assimilation differently. So the parents want to talk about holding on to everything in their home country, almost to the point that their children are in another country trying to assimilate, and the parents are trying to hold on to things back home, and the kids are like, wait, this is too much, I'm overwhelmed. And yet the parents will fight the kids. You're too Western. And the kids are like, but I'm in the West, what do you expect from me? And then there's a miscommunication between the generations, causing an extreme amount of tension. And this platform, this community for international Arab, is to bridge those gaps. But to we need parents to understand their children's experience, that we get that you want to hold on to the culture, yet can we really move to a place of understanding of what the children's experience is? And so that's how we harmonize that. The next piece, oh, time. Okay, how are we doing? Mita, talk to me. Oh, wait, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Okay, so we have, you asked a question and we had a couple answers.
Yeah,
Would you like me to read them for you?
please.
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm not sure about the name, it's LOU. It said confusion and fear and never being able to be authentic.
Oh,
Um,
New York. I love
yeah.
that. Confusion and fear and never being able to be authentic. Yes, that confusion and fear is very real. Thank you for saying that, Lou.
And then we have Hazel saying celebrating the holidays, but not talking about our holidays like Big Eid. And then he said, life is not sad, but dry and empty because of the loss of traditions and identity.
Correct. Yes. Thank you for highlighting the loss, because that loss is intense. And then I know, celebrating, we've kind of, it's sort of like, yes. However, we also need to understand that um, we want to celebrate all the holidays, but understanding that just because we're celebrating their holidays, it doesn't mean we don't need to honor ours. And how can we share with our neighbors our traditions? And I know I've done that to help with this bridging of the gap, is inviting neighbors over for different foods or different things, and they love it. And that's how we build bridges, with not just within our own community, but with other people, so that we can help give them an understanding that our traditions are very fun and quite lovely. Okay, what else?
We have Mustafa. He was not asking a question. He just said a very nice comment. He said, "Love your content. You have such a unique brand and put out very niche content that is very important for your target audience." He says, "Thank you." So we just want to.
Oh man, I'm kind of weepy today. Thank you, Mustafa. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. It's comments like that that keep me going, because this is not easy. But so let's talk about, and then I think Smilebot, hi Habibti. So yes, that's me right now. I totally understand that. So let's move forward around the psychological impact, which I think is really important for you to take a look at for yourself, because it's chronic, and I see this in Arab a lot. Chronic self monitoring. It's almost like ruminating or obsessive around, will they judge how I speak, how I dress? Now, you may get that from the Arab side, and you may get that from the country that you're in, that this constant self-monitoring of who I am, what I'm doing. So imagine you're getting it from both worlds, this constant chronic, oh my God, how am I moving? What am I doing? And your nervous system is completely fried because of this chronic self-monitoring, which then leads to my favorite topic, code switching fatigue. Oh, code switching fatigue, for those of you that may not know, it's the fatigue that refers to the mental and emotional exhaustion that comes from constantly adjusting the way you speak, behave, or express yourself to fit in different cultural or social settings. Now, I talk about the multi-layered within our culture. You may be code switching at home, code switching with your friend group, code switching at work, code switching in your home country. We are constantly morphing ourselves. And I'm thinking, no wonder most of us struggle with anxiety. And that anxiety is through the roof because of this fatigue of trying to mold ourselves into whatever the person's in front of us in order to, again, create safety. But it's a false sense of safety. Well, in some cases in the Middle East, again, this is how it gets complicated. It is your safety. And I've talked about the LGBT community. Your safety is contingent upon you code switching. And I'm not going to pathologize that. Okay. Now, again, let's talk about where does this show up? Again, we talked about at work, you may change the pronunciation of your name. Like I mentioned earlier, you may smile or laugh off microaggressions instead of confronting them. Hiding parts of your personal life. So I see this a lot. People will hide fasting during Ramadan. I've had many friends who would code switch around that. They would say they're fasting when they're not. Family obligations, prayer times. And so you have to remember that you may hide or pretend, and that's fine. That could be whatever works for you. There's no judgment here at all. To seem like you're cruising along with the path. Now, over explaining your cultural holidays or food choices, like I remember when we were kids, they would take the mojilla, the okra leaf, and my aunts and my grandma and my mom would buy bushels of it, and we would pick it, right? And then you leave it out in the garage on the sheet to dry. Well, our Americani friends would come over and they would go, "What's that weed? You guys are drying, weed or marijuana?" And we would be so embarrassed. We would be like, "Oh, it's not, it's just our cultural food." And we would over explain versus saying, "No, stop being ignorant. This is how we make our delicious food." But yeah, I know this is what we dealt with as Arab here, America. I don't know anywhere else if you guys had mojilla stories, but that's mine. But the emotional cost of that is really important for you to pay attention for yourself around feeling like your full identity isn't welcome. And that can lead to quiet resentment and burnout. So take a gauge for yourself. Where is the emotional cost of this showing up in my workplace? Because I know here in the US, they could be quite hostile to Arab in the workplace. And there's significant discrimination, but they do it sometimes, depending on the industry, pretty forthcoming. And then other times it's hidden. They like to use, I've seen it, they like to use us for our hard work and our ethic, but then they don't give us the promotions. Okay. Where does it show up in social media, social settings? Changing humor, clothing, topics. Okay. You may want to take a look at that. Where does it show up? Can you fully express your feelings? I know a lot of Arab, they'll say, "I feel alone when I'm sitting in space with other Arab because I cannot express my true feelings." If you're more authentic, I'm just going to say it. We come from a culture that we're not very direct. We hide. We don't really say what we mean and mean what we say, and people are dancing around things. And if you're authentic and you say things like it is, you may not be able to fully express how you're feeling. And so this may be a fragmented sense of yourself. Who am I? And this is a big question I get with working with Arab is, who am I really when no one is watching? Who are you when no one is watching? And that's the crux of the clinical work I've been doing with Arab for the last 25 years is, and I did this for myself, who am I when no one is watching? And can I be okay with that? Now, in community spaces, I'm going to our Middle Eastern LGBTQ community, the code switching that comes from that, and the intense amount of pressure that comes from that, um, and talking about relationships, and what that means. I just want to highlight for you guys, I can't even imagine how difficult that is. And so um, we need to be mindful about that. And we need to be sensitive to one another and honor each other's path. Okay. All right. How are we doing on time, Mita? Oh, here's a good one. Family and community spaces. This is a big one I talk about a lot around acting more Arab around the elders to avoid judgment. So I know when I'm around the elders, oh man, I'm just like, oh, I could play the game, do it well, even if, and I know that's a respect thing, but I tend to speak more Arabic, believe it or not. I'll tend to do my duties as bint Arabiya and really play that up because, again, there's that fear of judgment. Changing how you speak, dress, or behave when visiting family abroad. Take a look at that. Avoiding topics like therapy, boundaries, identity to prevent conflict. There's a lot of conflict avoidance in our culture. Again, emotional suppression, conflict avoidance. So you don't even want to bring up anything in our families. And I hear this a lot, being careful not to appear too Americanized. That's the thing they weaponize the most. And we're not going to do that on this platform at all. They use that if you want to progress or move forward or heal or talk about your emotions or have boundary. Oh, you're too Americanized. Really? Too Americanized? We're not going to weaponize that in here. It's an absolute control tactic to be able to keep you from progressing or moving forward or calling out things. And if you are the cycle breaker, which we talked about last week, they're going to push on you even more to shame you for being too westernized when that's absolutely not true. They're just not willing to look at some of the things that they have been hiding. Now, that's exhausting. The emotional cost for that is this identity toggling, is exhaustion and guilt. How many times have you guys talked to me? Tiffany, I feel so guilty. I'm constantly feeling shame and guilt. Okay. And then digital and online spaces. I hear this a lot. Curating different social media personas, one for family, one for friends, one for colleagues. And so translating posts, censoring opinions, depending on who might see them. Now, I'm just letting you know the exhaustion that comes with that, the anxiety that comes with curating all these different spaces. Now, let's add for the younger generation. Now we have all these online spaces, right? Do you see how you're being pulled in multiple different directions? Uh, Worrying about being misunderstood when we express cultural pride. I'm glad to see that's out the window. Now before we were so afraid to put anything online around being Arab. Now we're like, all bets off. There's so much. We need to own that, at least here in the US. In academia, oh my gosh, or even in therapy, if you don't have a culturally humble therapist, let me tell you, avoiding cultural or religious expressions that might be misunderstood. I've heard out clients that have gone to or just people that weren't culturally humble, where they would be afraid to express their political opinions or be afraid to express their religion or their viewpoints because they were afraid of being misunderstood. I was like, this is therapy. Like, the whole point is for you to be fully authentic in who you are. And they didn't even feel safe in that. In academia, don't get me started on academia. Oh my goodness. For all its curiosity, academia, or, thoughts, and academia can be profoundly rigid in suppressing freedom of thought and cultural inclusion. So for all their nonsense, a lot of it is lip service, at least here in the US. Okay, how are we doing on time? Let's talk about the last piece about why it's fatiguing, just to reiterate. Constant self-monitoring. How am I coming across right now? It leads to disconnection from your authentic identity. It reinforces feelings of not belonging anywhere. That's why I created this community. So at least we have a place to come to belong. That whether you belong here or there, you belong here. Okay? You belong here. And it's chronic stress. It's similar. We're constantly holding the emotional labor for our families, for people outside of our communities, and we're carrying it all, trying to make sense of it. And sometimes you will feel like you're drowning, and you're being pulled. Of course, you're drowning. So, how do we bring you back? How do we cope with this? Yes, just Ali, you wrote, I'm drowning. Yes, many of us are drowning under the weight of all of it. And so, how do we cope with it? So, thank you for segueing that. Okay. I have one technique is I create what I call code-free zones. So, I have spaces and relationships where I can show up fully in who I am. And that may even be one or two friends, one or two people. So, where are the code free zones that you have for you to really practice or to discover who you are? If you're early in your authentic self, in your healing journey, you may want to find those code free spaces. And sometimes it is online, and it may not be in your where you're actually living. However, can you please try and find those code-free zones so you could show up? This is who I am. Take it or leave it, right? You want to reflect. This is a big one on triggers. When and why you shift your expression. So having that acute awareness within you, like, oh, I'm code switching. Oh, I'm doing this. You want to do it. A lot of Arab live in a space of autopilot. I know I did that too, believe me, where you're just existing. You're just doing because that's what's expected of you. You want to be more discerning and more aware to say, I'm going into this environment. I'm consciously making a decision to assimilate, to belong, because that's my choice. So there's a sense of empowerment around let's say you're with an auntie or an amo and they trigger you, or you're with a colleague at work and they trigger you, you want to understand what was triggered. How did you keep yourself small? How did you maybe put yourself in a box in order to feel safe, to belong? Because the more you can understand that trigger and say, oh, I didn't want to be seen. Oh, I was maybe feeling like I knew more than the other person and I didn't want to be seen in that way, so I'm going to hide. Take a look at that, because that's a signal on where you may not be authentic and where you may need to own parts of yourself. We talk a lot about setting boundaries, deciding which settings deserve your energy. Now, what's happening is why so many of us drown, why we're being pulled, because we feel like every setting deserves our energy. And I'm saying, be real careful in where you put your energy and give yourself permission to say, I am not going to give this space any more energy. I'm just going to do what I need to do and keep it moving. That a lot of times there's this, because we want to assimilate, we will see me, hear me, look at me, and we seek this attention because we want to belong. And sometimes that can feel really intense. And I say, well, slow down, take it easy, really think through, is this a setting you want to give your energy to? More often than not, the answer is no. And then can you pull back and give yourself permission not to give, again, use that energy and find those code-free zones. The last 2 points is affirm your authenticity. Being both and is a strength, not a contradiction. Let me say this again. Being both and is a strength. It's not a contradiction, especially within our cultural contexts. Please do not beat yourself up or pathologize yourself for living in both. And then seek cultural community support, like spaces like this. Find spaces in your communities that understand bicultural experiences to help reduce the burden of translation. Find a culturally humble therapist. So those are some ways to cope. All right, Mira.
Oh, wow. Would you like me to read some comments now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have a question. It's the username is everyday. It's on IG. It said, "What if this division in identity is kind of a protection mechanism that's good for our mental health?"
Yes, it can be. It can be. Yes, absolutely. Especially with, I mentioned that, especially within our cultural context, it can be protective. But where the danger lies in that is if you're spending too much time protecting yourself, where are you finding safety? Elsewhere in your authentic being. You see, Mira, did that make sense?
It did.
It's right, because sometimes we go so far into protecting ourselves that that's the very thing that keeps us stuck. But yes, I agree with you. Yeah, in our cultural context, absolutely it's protective, because we're not at a point in our evolution as a culture or as a society to embrace everyone's way of being. And that's why maybe not the next generation, maybe 3 generations down will be there. But for right now, yeah, that's important.
And then Marwa on TikTok said the best word you said is be caution where you put your energy. I think that was very wise.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Marwa, please.
Yeah.
I always say to myself and to my clients, okay, take a deep breath. Where do you want to put your energy? Is it moving you towards who you are or away from who you are? And it's moving you away from who you are, at least do it empowered to say, okay, I'm going into this setting because I'm making a conscious decision to choose this battle with my family and play the game and do what I need to do, but do it with consciousness. Because then in doing it with consciousness, you're bringing it to yourself. Yeah. If there's one thing you can take away from today's live is that, where do I want to put my energy? Is it moving me towards me and my authentic self, or away? And if it's away, make a conscious decision as to why you're doing that. If you could start there and be aware of that, you can do okay. ايش كمان اشوف وين احنا.
Every day responded to you, said, I understand because I've been in both places and overdoing is very harmful.
Oh, yeah. The burnout within our cultural context is very, very high because we're doing too much and we're not slowing down, and no one's going to tell you to slow down. There is not, very few people in your life are going to go, oh, Habibi, Habibti, slow down, don't do much. No, they're going to say, keep going. And at work, especially, if I see so many Arab in at least the corporate setting here in the US, oh my gosh, they are top stars. They take on projects that they shouldn't even take on. And what do the companies do? Here, hudu, more work, more work. And then when they ask for the promotion, ish kulu, la, no. Mm-mm. La, la, la. I always tell my clients, like, okay, did we want to think about that a minute? Like, that's, you're doing everything. You're taking on huge projects, and then they tell you, oh, sorry, you don't get the promotion. Well, sorry, you get 50% of me. How's that?
Yeah, so I guess two important things is like you have to focus and be conscious of where you put your energy. And the second thing is to slow down, because no one's going to tell you to slow down.
That's right. And your families, you think your families are going to tell you to slow down? The more you do, the more they expect. And then you think
Yeah.
they're going to tell you, oh, habibi, habibti, oh, mashtarko, blah, blah. No, a lot of times the family doesn't say that. Or if they say that, it's only to keep you going to do more. Sorry, we got to break up the humor here. Okay. How are we good? Everyone good? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging in on this live. We've got 15 minutes left. As always, I always have to do a part 2. So I'm going to end with this last part, and then we'll do a part 2 next Wednesday. And as I've mentioned all throughout this live, is healing begins with awareness. That's all. I don't have the answers. I don't pretend to know the answers. The only thing I can call you to do for yourself is to heal. Healing always begins with you creating an awareness of noticing when you shift your behavior, and ask yourself, am I doing this for safety or acceptance? Practice showing small pieces of your authentic self in trusted spaces so that you can get evidence like, oh, they accepted me for who I am. That's pretty awesome. That's okay. I'm not this terrible person, this internalized shame, because there are people who love and accept me for who I am. And that is a very corrective emotional experience. And that's the experience I hope people can have here. And if you can't have it in your families or in your where you are, please go find them. Because my sense is you are who you are, and there are people that love you for who you are, and you don't need to hide that. And you need to feel that experience in your body. Otherwise, it'll just be noise. You want to reconnect with people in places where you can speak and think and feel freely. So what I love about anytime I meet Harab anywhere, you could be walking down the street, we always seem to sense each other. Oh, hey, and then we connect with each other. It's like, oh, marhaba, okay. And then there's an immediate connection because, and then so even speaking in the language, sharing in the foods, being in spaces that, I know when I moved out to Los Angeles, I don't get my mom's food, and finding those spaces, the Syrian restaurants, even though Palestinian, there's Syrian restaurants and Lebanese restaurants and even Armenian restaurants. You go and there's that home cooked feeling, and it's like, I'm home, I belong. And that feels good in finding those spaces. And do that when, especially, you don't want the loneliness to get so chronic that you isolate so much that you start to become what we call agoraphobic. You're afraid to go out, or you may feel that safety in the home, you see? So try to push yourself out of that comfort zone so that you can connect. I know there's a lot of anxiety around cultural representation. I mince no words around this. As Arab, the world has plummeted our part of the world so much that we don't need to apologize for who we are. We don't need to apologize for our feelings. At this point, to me, and I have the privilege of saying this because I'm here, it's like all bets are off. I'm Palestinian. I'm an American. I could be both. And I'm going to acknowledge that I'm not going to feel anxious or khaife walking around for who I am. So we are free and sovereign beings. And how can we embody that? And sometimes we may be in spaces where we can't. But how do you minimize the anxiety within you? But please, any Arab in the United States, and I can only speak to this experience, we don't need to apologize for who we are anymore. Khalas. Uh, be in who you are. And if you have feelings around anything that's happening in the Arab world, rightfully so. And anyway, that's my little plug there. You also need to monitor in your healing process around the loss of your self-worth when success is tied to Western validation. So you have to be really careful. A lot of our self-worth is tied to our families and how they see us. And then if there may be a loss of your self-worth when your success is tied to Western validation in the country that, where you immigrated to. And so again, let's move away from getting validation from family, validation from the Western culture that you may be in, and seek to validate yourself. And how do you do that? That's where your healing begins, is saying, I don't care. I don't care what my family says. I don't care what my company says. I value everything that I bring, but that healing process takes time, and it takes you to understand your triggers and for you to own your strengths, to own, like, yeah, this is who I am, and be unapologetic in safe ways. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop there because there's still so much more. But one thing I'm going to end with before we use the last 10 minutes on questions is assimilation does not have to mean erasure. Let me say that again. Assimilation doesn't mean erasure. True belonging comes from integration, honoring all the parts of your identity without apology. The goal isn't to choose between cultures, but to live from a place where both can coexist in dignity. Both can coexist in dignity. And can we honor that for one another? Can we not shame someone for being too Western? Can we not, those of us here in the United States, oh, they're too fobby. Can we stop with that and say, I embrace what you can bring, and I hope you can embrace what I can bring, so that together we can feed one another in the beauty of both worlds. So stay tuned for part 2, and we will talk more about how to continue to self-reflect and find ways to address our authentic self. Okay. All right, Mira, that's all we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So cool. Assimilation is a huge topic. Just continue to ask yourself those questions. Where am I hiding? Towards myself, away from myself? And who are the people that I call into my life? All right. Any questions? We've got 10 minutes to answer any questions.
Yeah, we don't have questions related to the topic, I think, because you always talk about everything that has to do with the topic. But we do have questions about the live. If it's recorded and it's going to be on YouTube. The link is in the bio. And we do have questions about one-on-one therapy sessions with you. So you can always DM us, and I'll guide you through how you can have the one-on-one sessions. Then we have questions related to guilt. And I think if you'd like me to read the question, would you like me to read it?
Sure. Let's go through some of the questions. Oh, and then somebody wrote something fil Arabi. If you can read that comment, because sometimes.
Yeah, it's it's not related to it's not related to the topic. It says follow me and things like that. So
Okay, so let's see. I think I see. Uh, I think it's Hiba 93.
yeah.
I hope I pronounced that correctly because I could. Okay, how can you get rid of shame and guilt? That's when that's all you've known for 30 plus years. Good question. Uh, if you go on YouTube, I have multiple videos on shame and on guilt, and lots of techniques to overcome that. Again, it begins with awareness. It begins with what is causing the shame. Shame is you're feeling it's you're identifying it for who you are. Guilt is something you've done wrong. Now, I think uh, the videos will explain ways to do that, but you're talking 30 plus years. It's not going to change overnight. So this is where you give yourself compassion and space to work through those. Part of it is just acknowledging it, but please go take a look at those videos. What else? When
We have a question from Fahad, I think. He said, it's on Instagram. He said, my cousin's son is gay in our community and he has completely distanced himself from the Arab community. I just wish people would stop judging others and leave that to God.
Oh my God. I get emotional around this topic very much because if any of you knew the stories of what people from the LGBT community deal with, um, the it's awful, and I am committed to ensuring that um, your cousin's son has a place of belonging and support. Because for all you mentioned God, and I don't talk about religion, but the way people move and how they harm people from this community, um, for all its religion, I often wonder what God is going to harm people in this way. And that's not a God I want to follow, that's going to inflict the amount of isolation and cruelty. Um, I have to say that I get emotional because as a therapist, you hear the depth of the stories and you feel powerless. And the only thing I can do for your cousin's son is to ensure that we create an awareness of a world that we can change so that everyone within our communities can feel safe and embraced and loved. And I'm not ashamed of my feelings towards this because we need to understand that we need to be kinder to each other. And this community has done nothing wrong but to live and love who they want to love. And they're not doing anything to harm anyone. Yet the harm is being done to them. And we justify it through God? Really? Anyway, thank you for saying that. And I too wish that we stop judging others. And I too wish that we can create a community of love. Okay. This is a very hard topic for me. Very hard topic. Because there's so much need and so much suffering. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Let's lighten it up a little bit, but thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, for holding space for me to feel my feelings around that. Thank you. I feel held in this way. I appreciate you. Let's see. I can relate to everything. I need to heal fully and feel free. That freedom sometimes comes at a cost of not belonging. And that's what I talked about the last two lives is around the loss of your freedom may require you to not be a part of the community for a while. You may have to leave it and then come back. And that could be hard. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you joining this live. Remember, you are never alone. You are always here to find a community that's going to see you, love you, affirm you, recognize you, that you may struggle with assimilation and it is very normal. You may be tired, pulled in multiple different directions. Know that you find yourself slowly, one step at a time, recognizing, what do I need? What do I need right now to connect to myself? And as we say here, nawar titnawar, the light in me sees the light in you. And may you go forward on your path, affirming who you are. And I'll see you next week on Wadih Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, where we're going to do part 2 of the cost of assimilation in a new world. I wish you all the very best. Take care. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gratitude. Thank you.